This week's Q&A. I'm your host Mod Sween and I'm joined by Mod Ash.
Hello.
Mod Flippy.
Hi there.
Mod Oasis. We've got Mod Tide on the chat, so at Old School RuneScape, should you want to talk to him, have a little chat or ask us any questions. We're supported by Mod Spear and Mod Impact, helping us behind the scenes. I'll begin with the usual announcements. High scores, not much to update on from last week I'm afraid. So the TLDR is, we've tried some different things to fix it. They didn't work, but we are going to try more fixes.
I believe there's one being tested at the moment, and hopefully it can come out in the next week or so if it passes testing. I understand we may have to add some restrictions to the threshold. You have to be on the high score to appear on the boss scores after that. You know, like maybe you need 10 to get on the table rather than anybody. That's the kind of optimization that may be necessary to get this thing working again. Anyway, well, firstly, you'll notice if it starts working. Secondly, if we end up having to chop the bottom off of it to help it work, then I'm afraid that's a sacrifice we'd have to make. And
I think one that most players would be willing to accept.
Especially as the more intense boss hunters are not going to be in the chopped off bottom bit.
PvP. So last week we spoke about how we've made some progress with the overall PvP vision. There's still some alignment internally that we need about how to proceed. So we're still in the process of addressing the feedback we've got some players, agreeing on the content we're going to offer, and then scoping the scale of it and then building that into the roadmap. But once we have done that, we were going to share the roadmap. And like I said last week, once we're in a position to share the content roadmap, we're going to share kind of each iteration of the vision as it was, the feedback we got at various stages, and then what we decided to do as a result of the feedback. So you've got complete visibility on how we came about with the vision, the feedback we've got, and ultimately why we decided to do what we're going to do. Death mechanics. So the opinion poll we ran last week has concluded. Quite a large number of you voted this time around, so just under 74,000 people voted. Option one, just to remind you of what the options were. So option one got around 13.7% of votes. That was the 2-minute timer of old. Option two captured 23.7% of your votes. And that was the 15-minute gravestone where you pay a fee to reclaim your items with the addition of something like Death's Coffer, where you can sell other items to Death for cash to use to reclaim your items. Option 3 got 41.5% of votes, the most popular. This was similar to option 2, but after the 15-minute timer expired, the items would then move to a location like Death's office, where you could still reclaim them, but at a great cost. And option 4, which was something else, got 21.1% of the votes. So that means we were going to proceed with something like we pitched with option 3. In terms of any updates on that, do you have any to share?
Only that development has begun, and we hope to have it out in the spring.
Cool, thank you. Just another reminder, because it's quite a relatively new process, we've added a new way for you to submit your questions for future Q&As. So !questions will allow you to send questions to us through a Google form. And finally, !Darkmeyer to learn about the content in detail, but the poll is now live for the next big content update. So we're polling the new Mikey cast, the Bloodshard and Vampire Slayer task, Dial Essence Mine, the Hallowed Sepulchre, and its rewards, including Dark Graceful. Mod Spear, if you could back up the poll. So this is what you'll be voting on. We have a little zoom in and we'll go through the question in detail. So question 1 is the quest itself, and by default is also the city of Darkmeyer. Question 2 is dependent on question 1 passing. So if it does pass, should we then add the Bloodshard as described in the blog? The item would be obtained via pickpocketing via lords and via ladies, or killing elite via watch. Which then takes us nicely into question 3, which is, should you be able to unlock vampires as a new task from these Slayer Masters? And should you be able to unlock that task, what if you could extend them? Question 5 is the Dial Essence Mine. So for players who aren't quite familiar with what that is, I'd recommend reading the blog, so !Darkmeyer. But TLDR, anyone have one of those?
For the Essence Mine?
Yep.
Well, it's a new way of rune crafting. You basically go down a dungeon, you mine some shards, which you can then send straight to your bank, and then you can use them as normal pure essence, basically, a stronger version of pure essence at any altar in the game.
What makes them stronger than normal pure essence?
Lore-wise, I'm afraid that's something that Ed would probably know better than me. I worked mostly with the layout of the dungeon and kind of try to get the balancing right.
Jolly good.
Okay, so question 6 is should Darkmeyer include the Hallowed Sepulchre as described in the blog? Just a reminder, we showed that off on last week's live stream. We've got a few slides dedicated to that a bit later on, we'll show you. But the Hallowed Sepulchre is the agility activity right in Darkmeyer.
That thing looks quite exciting. I think the players have seen it on stream the other week, but I'm quite enthusiastic about that one.
The reception we got to it was really, really positive. I know a lot of players were wondering, why are we adding a new activity when we've got things like rooftops that exist? But I think the idea is we wanted to offer players variety, so they didn't have to click around in a circle, around in a circle, around in a circle. What if we could do something a bit more interactive instead?
Yeah, it's different, but it actually is really fun. I'm kind of one of those players who really enjoy repetitive clicking, as most old school players will. But it is really nice in a way, kind of breaking through that very standard way of training agility. And I was also afraid that players would not really like getting out of that comfort zone, but it seems like people are really happy about the concept so far. So
I know players enjoyed the kind of showing off the grey boxed content. I think that's something we should aspire to do more in the future if the content allows itself to be done in that way. Yeah,
it's really fun for us. Players seem to enjoy it. So
just to race through a bit quicker, question 8 and 9 are based around rewards for the Hallowed Sepulchre. And if we go for the last few. And 10 and 11, probably the most interesting to a lot of you, is the Dark Graceful. And the Dark die you need to create the Dark Graceful. And a Dark Acorn, which turns your squirrel into a black and red squirrel. Sweet. I've got the clicker somewhere. Here we are. So just a reminder, if you didn't catch last week's stream, we showed off some concept art for the Hallowed Sepulchre. This is level 5. Am I correct in assuming that it begins at level 5 and descends to level 0, or vice versa?
Well, for us, config-wise, it actually begins from a lobby, and then it goes down from level 1 down to level 5. And so there's the treasure room.
So concept-wise, this would be the treasure room itself then?
Yes, I believe so.
Cool. Some prop layouts. Could anyone explain what a prop layout sheet is and what it exists to do?
Well, it's kind of like a way to display both the theme of the concept and kind of what would go in there. So you're left with a bunch of puzzle pieces that you can like mix and match to create a much better picture of what you're working with. So in this case, for example, I believe Mod Husky were talking together with the graphics to get the theme of this right, and then they came up with this, and then he's basically been in the map editor, kind of like placing all these different assets around just to try it out and get a prototype going.
Cool, thanks for the explanation. Okay, and the last slide for this recap. So if you missed last week's stream again, this is an example of the kind of grey box stuff we showed off. So what you see here is one of the floors, a few obstacles. You can see your pet squirrel trapped on one of the obstacles.
Yeah, right.
And in the background, you'll notice there are some characters. Well, for this one, when we get to release, should the content pass the poll, those would be replaced by, I believe, flying swords. Is that correct?
Not those ones particularly. I think those will be either flames or some kind of projectile flying.
Okay.
We have a sword trap as well.
Yeah, but for now, those animations don't actually exist. So we've got some, bots walking that you'll have to avoid. Okay, thanks Modspear. That's it for the recap for the Darkmeyer poll. So just a reminder, it is now live in game. It was made live earlier today. So head to a poll booth near you, or open the community tab in your account management menu to be able to vote there. Vote remotely. Right, on to the questions. So question 1. Due to the results of the poll, presumably the Death Mechanics poll, will items from Vorkath or Zolra be reobtainable from Death's office, or will I still have to make the Walk of Shame?
I'm afraid we intended to leave those in the place where they currently are, and since I think the fee in the current place would be less than Death would charge, that Walk of Shame is probably worth it for you.
Okay, thank you.
I suppose we could have an option to make them go to Death's office and then you pay the premium to save the Walk of Shame. But for the moment, we expect you to feel the shame.
Okay, next question. Is it possible to add a favourite world option for mobile? As it stands, when I open mobile, a random world is selected, and it's a minor inconvenience to go in and change it every time. I'd love to set my preferred world as default.
There's some work being done by the engine team to give us, the content developers, more control of what happens on the login screen itself. This would, among other things, let us, well, redesign bits like the world switcher interface on it, which I think is horrible. I mean, it ticked the boxes back in the day, and when for desktop users you can do mouse over effects and things like that, but for mobile it is not good, and we'd like very much to be able to replace it with something where you don't have to, well, mess around to try and find out what the tooltip says on each thing. If they can conclude that, then we'd also be able to do additional things like add a favourite button that you customise, etc. However, I don't know how far away the launch of that dehard coding is. It's something they very much need. Partly because maintenance is a right pain when any little tweak there, change to a link, change to wording, has to be more engine work. By doing this big investment and letting us have control of it, they can dump all that sort of thing back to us, and we can do it in, you know, weekly game updates rather than having to go through the App Store launch process, which is a big improvement for us. But I don't know how far away that is, especially it's not the only thing we need from them. Apart from anything else, they're having to help the high scores at the moment.
Cool, thank you for the insight. So the answer is, we'd like to do that.
I wrote the login screen world switcher in about 2009-ish or thereabouts. So
that long ago?
Yeah, it really is.
Right, next question. Also a bit engine-y in theme. So along with the Nightmare came a new engine feature for NPCs to rush to a position. Could we then apply that update to the Abyssal Sire? And another player suggests the Grotesque Guardians, so they're not standing around for, 15 seconds while the boss is invincible.
I think it just kind of depends on if we want to start to revisit that old content. I feel like there's a lot we could do with the NPC, that kind of movement that we've got. But I think is it worth going back and revamping some of these bosses that people really like as is?
I'd also question how appropriate it would look if, at the moment, the Nightmare does a pretty impressive attack and can scoot around. If the great big lumbering sire plods out of its pod and then goes across the floor, this might look a little weird. Now, players might decide, who cares how weird it looks? All they want is the gains at the end of killing it, so skip all the animations and just get on with the show. But it would be a little sad to do.
So I think we look at the issue I want solved, which is standing around for a while whilst the NPC slowly lumbers to a certain spot. If we could perhaps resolve that in a different way other than zip, like you just said, to make it a bit more thematically fitting, or even just look better, then perhaps we should do so. Okay, next question. When you hover over the player-owned house teleport, could you have it so it displays where that house currently is? Perhaps useful if you haven't played for a while, you tell your home, you don't quite know where you're going to end up when you leave the portal.
If you hover over it, I don't know.
Well, the spell interface shows currently, the runes required, the name of the spell, etc. It could replace the name of the spell with the information described, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't. It'd be a big pain if it was on the tablets.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Because that's
that
impossible.
out. But the spell interface we'd be able to do.
Okay. So the next question. Is there an update on the PVM achievement diaries which were mentioned at RuneFest?
No, that's not currently in development.
So initial planning is later in the year. Currently it's a very conceptual idea. We haven't really delved into what the design looks like. I think for now it's just kill so many of so many things.
I know Mod Husky also has quite a few ideas. Mm-hmm. He showed me kind of a spreadsheet of how, in his mind, we would divide the different difficulties of it and stuff. But we haven't decided anything yet.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It might have made sense for him to be the one pitching it at RuneFest because he had a lot of those ideas back then as well.
Yeah.
He mentioned a couple to me and I worked them into the talk, but it's not how it worked out.
Okay. So next question, can clue scrolls be obtained from skilling events such as Pyramid Plunder and other older content?
I've got no problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Seems like something to snap onto like a qual poll. Should players want that?
So basically, maybe look at which skills do currently not provide any sort of clue scrolls.
Well, in the case of thieving, there's those ham people, but that's probably not the kind of tier that the player's looking at here.
How would you work it into the law of pyramid plunder? You just find an old note.
Well, given that you can find old clues in old chests in the Chambers of Xeric and in the Theatre of Blood, it's not that big a stretch to be able to find it in the pyramid whose name I can't pronounce.
Or in a bird's nest.
Also that. Well, everyone knows magpies steal things.
That's true.
Not so shiny though, are they?
Touché.
Tattered old scrolls.
I think in RuneScape the magpies are quite smart. They know about banknotes too.
Ah, okay.
It's
next-
magic.
The next question, are there any plans to revisit or rebalance Basilisk Nice? It seems like they're in a frustrating state currently and have been ignored due to larger content updates since.
Short answer, yes, we're looking into it. I don't know exactly how much I can say about it, but we want to get them to a decent state where, they're not so frustrating to kill, because in the end of the day, we don't want that to be the determining factor of how many that kill it. Like, we don't want to intentionally make something annoying to have less player killing it and drive up price values, for example. So yeah, we're looking into it.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, are there any plans for low to mid-level group content? Regarding the new player experience, I think it would be good to have more group content to aim for early on. So I've got a suggestion from Mod Tide here. He said, I did come up with a free-to-play mid-level solo rat boss. This would also give a new stab weapon that is poisonous. Is this your idea? What the player thoughts to that?
I liked it when he pitched it to me. I definitely agree. I think there could be some cool new stuff we could do at the early level, but I'm definitely always keen to listen to what players have to say.
This is the corrupted rat in the sewers idea, was it? I did like that one. Did the player ask for group content here?
I did, yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Just make it a bigger rat.
Yeah. What we need is bigger rats.
I think it's worth noting as well. So Syracnis, I think, was Mod Husky's attempt at trying to onboard, say, the mid-level players to PVM content. I feel maybe where we came a bit unstuck was when we introduced the pet and then suddenly gave a reason for high-level players to kind of repeatedly kill the boss, and suddenly mid-level players, because it's not instance, found it difficult to actually get an opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Well, if it's free to play, that would avoid the pet thing.
Yeah, very
at
true.
least on some worlds.
I would be interested in a boss that, because we have this problem where whatever the boss is, like Syracnas, for example, someone with a really high-level player who will deal a lot of damage to the mob will kill it really quickly, and so we need to balance the drop table around those players, essentially, which creates a problem for mid-level players where it might not always be worth. When we target something for mid-level players, I feel like we often end up in the situation where they're not the ones mainly killing the mob because of that reason.
Yep.
It would be interesting to look at some kind of mechanic that kind of balances that out, so that it doesn't necessarily, being able to dish out a lot of damage doesn't necessarily mean you get the kill quicker. In a way, it sounds kind of stupid when you say it out loud,
Sure.
but I think you could potentially do something with that to at least put mid-level players on the same kill time as higher level players.
Okay. I think as well, I'm quite interested to see how adventure paths and other early game change experiences work out. Because I know we're aiming very close after you leave Tutorial Island, but if we do manage to kind of, I don't want to say retain, but keep those players having fun and playing with the content, how far can we take them along the journey? I don't want to dictate what they do with the rest of their account life. Like, okay, you've done this path, now go and do this. I want to give a semblance of choice. But if we can use those style of mechanics to onboard players to bosses, that'd be quite a cool way to explore it.
Yeah.
See where it works or not. Okay, the next question. Can we move away from offering XP lamps as rewards for quests? With the 3 times 15,000 XP lamps coming with the new Darkmeyer quest, you may as well just go in and give a 45k runecrafting XP reward. What happened to the old days where you got XP based on the skills you used in the quest?
I'm not sure what skills you use in this one.
I'm not too familiar either.
No.
I also remember One Small Favour not being so unpopular on launch.
I do have a response from one Old School mod. They haven't left their name on the sheet. They say, most of the quests we released in Old School do give XP based on the skills used. However, this quest follows the convention set by the last couple of Mikey quests, which were to give an XP tome. So there's your reasoning based on that. I think it's one I can get behind as well. The next question I've seen asked repeatedly for a few weeks now, so I'm quite keen to offer an answer of sorts. But what I'd hope to do with it is almost answer it when we get to the point where we're able to release the PvP vision and roadmap. The question is, can we please get an extension to the PJ timer? It's ridiculous to be killed by a clan of 4, all trading specs when you're in single way, and they emphasize single in all caps, single way combat zones. I ask this now just in case anybody has any opinions or prospective solutions I'd like to offer. Otherwise, I think we can leave it with, we'll cover that kind of thing in when we do release the PvP vision.
The Wilderness hasn't generally got one at all, right? That could be a place to start.
Sure.
If they want one.
Okay, next question. A bit more conceptual. We ask about upcoming quests all the time. What changes would you make to existing storylines if you had the power to rewrite them? Any from the top of your head? I could come back to that a bit later on if you'd like some time to think.
I'd be inclined to merge the White Knights and Temple Knights stories slightly, because if, in hindsight, because with the Wanted quest, we send you chasing down White Knight ranks. In the slug-related quests, we send you looking for Temple Knight ranks. And while the two are separate organisations, it feels like two slightly awkward stories kind of on top of each other, ignoring each other, one of which is likely to be better than the other, just by the nature of the Temple Knights. So I'd have quite liked if that had been different to how it is.
I think the meme answer is extending One Small Favour and having a sequel. I think is what it really needs.
Return of the Favour. For a few favours more.
A few favours more, I like that one.
The big favour.
No, stop.
I've always been a bit of a Tolkien fanatic, so when I first started playing Old School again, I'd say actually I was a player. I hadn't joined Jagex yet, but I heard about Zaya, upcoming, being released. I figured this is a brand new land out to the west, so I thought it might make sense for perhaps the westernmost part of the main continent would be the elves. So what if they were to have to migrate westward, almost like the elves did in Tolkien, with going to like Valinor and the Undying Lands, and Prith got ruined somehow, or perhaps sunken like Numenor. But I think that's what the approach I would probably take.
Well, Valinor and Valamor don't sound that different, right?
Yeah.
I didn't think that you'd go to Tolkien after we were talking about One Small Favour. 'Cause in terms of story writing, it's a long way. Old School BNVS says no more quests like One Small Favour, please. Not phrased quite like that. I actually said something fairly similar back in 2004 when it was first being written, because I was in the QA team at the time, and my first project was about to be testing the One Small Favour quest. And I read through the design document, played through it, and my initial feedback included, can we make sure we don't have any more quests quite like this for a while afterwards, please? Because this is one mechanic that we use a lot, and it's kind of been distilled here. And I'd prefer that, having launched this one, we don't have another quest that's a bit like it coming straight afterwards. It didn't go down too well. Then I didn't end up testing it after all, probably by the developer's request.
I think I've always been a fan of like bigger, large-scale things, so like Lord of the Rings, but also kind of like Warhammer in that. And I don't think RuneScape can really capture the essence of something like that, where it's on such a big scale. I think they've tried. I think Eyes of Glorfir. That's the one where there's a big fight relative to RuneScape scale. But I think for me, it'd be quite tricky to capture the essence of like a massive war going on, like in Warhammer.
I tried for something of the sort in Swan Song. There's a cutscene where 7 trolls arise from the sea, and it's sort of Mexican wave, and 7 skeletal magi stomp towards them, and the camera runs along the trolls as they do their attack at him with slight delay offset. I was trying to do something very similar to the prologue cinematic in Fellowship of the Ring, where the camera pans along with the elves as they all move their shields. Of course, not quite on the same epic scale. Also, the lack of Hugo weaving, which holds back anything.
I think we tried to do something similar recently with Song of the Elves. You have the cinematic in Underground Pass, and with the Elven Civil War, and then you've got with Fremnik Exiles when there's the invasion of Relica.
Right.
Oh yeah.
But I do agree, it doesn't quite match the scale of what you're offering.
Yeah, I don't think you'll be seeing the Charge of the Rohirrim anytime soon in RuneScape.
Or whatever they did in Aquaman, where it's in 3 dimensions because they're all water.
It's unrelated. I think the most ridiculous scene I've seen is the Hobbit adaptation, where the dwarves jump from the elven shields. That ruined it for me.
You don't need to mention The Hobbit and say that bit ruined it. The whole film did.
Or Legolas running up the crumbling bridge.
Oh, well, they had to top the thing where he climbs onto a yak at some point by stepping on the sky.
Okay, I've seen someone in the chat saying moving on, please. So we will do just that. I have some questions from the chat. The Pringles asked, I'd like to raise a question about Asian servers, please. Any updates are we going to get from? So as a development team, we're not the best place to say that kind of thing. We know players would like to play with better ping than they have. Any player would. It comes down to looking at I guess, I don't want to be too corporate with it, but the opportunity cost. Are there enough players there to warrant it? Similarly, is there enough kind of good infrastructure there for us to use without going through massive scale projects to get set up there?
While none of us knows any details on it, the fact that our company owners live there means they have almost certainly not forgotten the market exists. So I'd expect it to have been given enough thought at some point along the line in the time they've owned us.
Okay, next question. In terms of Darkmeyer additions, will a shortcut for barrows be added to the new city? Is that on the plan at all?
I don't think that's a part of the plan.
Okay.
I think we have some shortcuts, but I don't think there's one necessarily to barrows. I'm not entirely sure, but I don't think so.
Somebody sent me a request earlier for a high-level one going north through the Darkmeyer wall to the Grave of Desus, the vampire boss from Desert Treasure. On the grounds there's a clue scroll in that area.
Right.
It'd be a lot easier to get to if you had that, if you go through that wall.
Yeah.
Okay, another question from the chat. Milked asks, will Versic count as a Vampire Slayer task?
No, not currently.
The designer Theatre of Blood included not having any of the creatures in their count for Slayer tasks, including Sothethug and the Nolocus. That was intended because the developer didn't want people to have a meta for Theatre of Blood that involved getting a particular Slayer task first. Also, in the case of the Nolocus, where with the original draft I had made them all count as spiders, getting that particular Slayer task would be a real pain.
That makes sense to me, to keep things as they are and not have Versic count as a vampire task. Okay, moving back to the questions on the dock. Okay, previously the Inferno pet, as well as the Corp Beast pets, were given updates to their models to make them more true to the boss. The Abyssal Sire pet still has a, I don't know how to pronounce this word, Scion. Hey, as its pet. And I think players would love to have the actual boss as a pet. The waddling huge green red spear stomach with arching tentacles out of his back would look so cool. Could we see an update to this pet? Long-winded way of saying he'd love a update to the Abyssal Sire pet.
I think you couldn't take one away and then say, all right, you're having this now. I guess it'd have to be a transmog on the pet, because otherwise people are like, I don't want that pet, I want my original back. And you can't just go around and go, tough. So, we could, but I don't think it'd go down well. So maybe as a transmog, if we polled it and people really wanted it.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
Next question. Could we have a similar spawn timer for Sarachnis compared to Giant Mole and KBD? A 30-second spawn timer is long, considering the boss takes a minute to kill. And I'm asking this because, what Oasis wants to answer?
I don't know how much I can say, but keep your eyes peeled in the next in this month. we've got something lined up to put that question towards the community, I'll say.
Do you have the answer written on the ceiling?
It might be up there, don't know. But yeah, keep your eyes peeled for over the next couple of weeks, and you'll see something regarding that and other things.
Okay. So cryptic, but keep your eyes peeled.
Yep.
So the next question, single cosmic runes are unlocked at 27 rune crafting. Double cosmic runes are unlocked at 59 rune crafting. Also, I've taken this verbatim from the player, so forgive me if those numbers are wrong. Could you add triple cosmic rune crafting at level 91? It makes it a little easier to get them through rune crafting rather than boss drops.
Absolutely not.
Nope.
No, I don't know.
We lack that kind of conviction on the sofa.
I don't see a strong reason not to, on the top of my mind.
Something to poll,
Yeah,
I imagine.
could.
So now I can't really judge how the chat feel about it. The way you threw them off to begin with.
Well, they love their rune crafting.
They do.
Now, on the other hand, with that day old stuff, maybe there could be an upgrade from that because it's stronger.
Because it's stronger.
Yes, we
And
quite
we
a
only
definition of
cater to
stronger.
the cosmic runes. We could, but
Well, I wasn't quite clear what the stronger meant in this context.
Right.
I thought it might mean cosmic runes. You never know your luck.
that's true. That's true. I guess maybe something to pull in general, wherever it would come from.
Okay, we'll try and find out more about why players want it, whether or not the current meta is cosmic runes getting from, say, shops or PVM. I'm afraid I don't know. Okay, next up I've got a player suggestion. Would Modspear like to bring up the slide? So, previously we've spoken about construction training on Q&A when we answered questions. And we've talked about, it'd be cool to build like construction blueprints or job contracts. This player put quite some thought into a nice little design doc, so we take a little read through. TLDR is, estate agents around Gielinor have decided to offer reinventing services to the citizens of Gielinor. Each agency, or state agency, will cover a different region of the map and will require different construction levels to work with. Players will be able to visit an estate agent to receive a job contract, and that will require them to head to a random house in the region and build an amount of furniture using either materials or flatbacks. For completing these jobs, you will get GP, construction XP, and construction points, or just construction points if flatbacks were used. So, onwards. The regions the players pitching, so Varrock has Region 1, Falalor Region 2, Ardoin Region 3, and then you've got Hestidius, presumably, Piscaridius and Arceus as the last region. Naturally, don't take this as though we're locked into this kind of thing. Just look at the concept.
I think contracts in general are a pretty cool idea.
Okay.
I think, well, obviously for Slayer works, the whole skill is built around them. For farming, it's really nice as well. Seeds are a perfectly fine reward for completing a contract, and also there's like a lot of dead time in farming anyway, so you can't really abuse it so hard.
Sure.
I think for certain skills it makes less sense to have contracts.
Okay.
Wood cutting, or construction, I'm not sure. Did it cover any reward in this document?
It does.
or?
That's up next. We'll get to that shortly.
Right, cool.
So let's look at what a construction job is. So you go to an estate agent, you're given a task, you head to the costumer, presumably customer's house around the region. There are hotspots there. They appear temporarily instead of where some default furniture exists, and then you build it. The requested furniture is built using either the pure materials or the flat packs themselves. And then once you do that, like I said, you get GP, you get XP or construction points. You go back to the estate agent to claim those rewards. And next up is a reward shop the player is suggesting, consisting of, to use these construction points, which you'd receive for the construction tasks, or jobs as they call them. And currently you can see things like packs of planks, an upgrade to the builder's outfit, which does also require completion of Tower of Life. Sawmill's permission, I think that says, the ability to turn redwood into planks, which would then, because of I think part of this that wasn't really covered in the design doc was that there'd be new redwood furniture to build as part of these construction jobs. And other rewards include house themes, lots of them. So Mauritania house theme, Jungle house theme, Arceus house theme, and Prif house theme. Obviously no players really like those, but also we know how art intensive they are to build those house themes. So without getting to the minutiae of how the jobs work or perhaps the rewards job, let's look at, oh no. I thought there was another slide, apologies. It was more about the justification for why they exist. So construction currently is, well, you click a single spot over and over and over and over and over again, and perhaps not the most enjoyable way of training. The way the player pitched this was it's less intensive, but also slower XP. So I think this kind of offers an in-between.
The XP you're getting while you do the building of the stuff, you're supplying your own materials, right, by the look of it,
Yep.
or your own flat packs. So that gets around some of the objections I'd seen to previous drafts where I think you would be not required to supply the materials as well. I like this version better than what I've seen before.
Cool. Okay, it's a nice idea. Thank you to the player for putting the time into that. So let's go to the next question. What could be done to combat corp beast crashes? And I guess, do we consider it crashing? So, in terms of do we consider it crashing, I'll answer first. I feel like if a player is going to respec and then somebody else turns up in that time, I don't consider that to be quite crashing. That's just unfortunate that whilst you're away at the pool, somebody else turns up. If it's repeatable and targeted, whether it's to an individual or perhaps somebody's changing wells solely for the purpose of doing it, then I would consider that to be, I guess, against the rules. So in the coming weeks, we're looking to roll out a process which will allow you to report players for targeted harassment, griefing, ragging, not just in Court Beast, but other areas of the game as well, and we would take action against those players. But I think ultimately the best way to mitigate these types of things is through content changes. And I believe we've seen some suggestions from the player base as to how we might be able to do that. I saw you posted one earlier. Ash. Could you go into detail about that one?
One involving the Corp has private instances available for them as wants to. But if you're in one of those and you're soloing and you leave to reset yourself, you're not to restock, then of course the Corp won't be in the same state when you come back in again in another instance. But it could be. Now, we've not been able to recreate, say, a Chambers of Xeric setup from how you left it if you log out in there as a solo player. But the Corp doesn't have so many NPCs in it. It's got like 2. And basically, in the case of the Corp, if all you'd got was its health and its defense level, and maybe the number of times it spawned its dark core, the frog as we used to call it, and we recreated it to that state, it would mean that you'd be able to go back into a private instance and continue from where you left off as though it hadn't been an instance like you could in the public one, but without other people turning up. Anyway, most of that came off a player suggestion actually, but it should be feasible.
Yeah, so we'll see what the players think about that. I see somebody in the chat already pointed out that it's a vocal minority yapping up a storm here. It might be that it's a vocal minority, but if something's so detrimental to their gameplay, I don't see this really being catering to Iron Man in the sense of adding something to be really easily farmed from a boss drop or a shop. This is more about I want to be able to play and complete the content without being griefed.
You're also not obliged to be an Iron Man to use a private portal like that.
Mm-hmm.
Also depends on how cheap the content is to make, right? If it's something that takes us a day to do and it really improves the quality of life for a lot of players, then it would be worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, next question. Could you give us some more information about Gnome Child's dialogue at Juliet's party?
Some of it is absolute gibberish. True informed to what Gnome Child has said in the past. Some of it, as a lot of players have pointed out on Reddit and Twitter, has links to different elements in the game, different stories that have been told and stories that have yet to be told. These all came from the lore master in our team. So I can't give away too much.
You could give away the name of the lore master on the team.
Mod Ed?
Yes.
Yep. I just couldn't remember his mod name. Pretty easy one, actually.
Let's wonder whether it's Impact or Spear or any of the mysterious names we're hearing.
So he supplied all those lines of dialogue, the ones that do make some sense, I should say. So it's just a little bit of a teaser for what's coming up over the, I'd say, next few years, really, rather than months or anything.
Yeah, there's
suggest we
And some of them are gibberish.
Yep, some of them just don't mean anything.
in the chat, Twitchy Gnome suggested we go back and retroactively, well, not retroactively, we design future content based around what the Gnome Child has said previously, even if it's gibberish. So it's always foreshadowing.
Seems perfectly reasonable.
I think one is if you're going off the rails, they're just jealous that you can fly.
Yes.
I don't know how you design a quest around that one, but we could try.
Well, we have that train that connects Dorgish Khan to Keldacrim. So if that were merged somehow with a magic carpet, or possibly Gnomecopter, then we could take what was originally just written as an inspirational quote.
There you go.
If they say you're going off the rails, they're just jealous you can fly, and try to make serious content for a serious game out of it. On the other hand, we do also have communist penguins, so what the heck? I love writing Gnome Child dialogue. I can't take the credit for any of this year's batch, but I sent my wife a link to some of last year's Gnome Child dialogue from the birthday event, and she agreed it was a jolly good thing I didn't write our wedding vows.
Do any of you watch unrelated Twin Peaks?
No, I tried, but I couldn't.
So some of the dialogue reminds me of what happens in the Red Room there, but I'll move on from that. The dialogue also strikes me as quite it resembles the post back from the hedge and the Chaos Elemental dialogue, which I think was similarly a mix of gibberish and foreshadowing for upcoming content. Okay, moving on to the next question. If the Blood Shard passes the poll, could we add it to an Ornamental Fury? Whether to get its effect or perhaps to look like an Ornamental Fury with a Blood Shard. Is that something we've accounted for?
That should be fine, I think.
I think so. I think we can
I think
simply say we don't know.
no, it would be some more graphics work for it, I guess, but yeah, it should be fine.
Okay.
Small job.
Right, next question. This was probably done a very long time ago, but I'd like to hear how XP rates for different skills were established. Why do some skills like firemaking and construction have multiple methods allowing of up to 300,000 XP per hour, while others like mining and Slayer have much slower rate? I'm not complaining. I'm just curious about how we determine XP rates for different activities, because all we can do is speculate.
I actually like that all skills do not share the same rate. I think it's nice that most skills kind of have their own identity in that way. Of course, like we have kind of categories with skills, so we have like buyables, we have gathering skills and blah blah blah. But I do like that some cost more, some take longer to train, some are just a pain in the ass, and then we have like really AFK skills, we have more interactive skills. I kind of like that there's a different dynamic. You know which skill I'm talking about.
Well, if they all did have the same rate, and that rate were the rate of rune crafting, I think that would be quite memorable.
It would.
I think the case of fire making, it was, I mean, let's be honest, it's not the most useful skill. And being able to have a mini game based around it that does make it interesting, and it's kind of become relevant again. I think it drastically needed it before Wintertodt came out.
If I recall correctly, in RS Classic, you got slightly more XP per log you lit, based on your level at the time, by like half an XP per, or maybe 1 XP per level. I'm not quite sure how that came about, but that's what I'm pretty sure I was getting as a player.
So I was going to ask, sorry to interrupt if you were carrying on, was there any logic to, I think, Andrew and Ian's XP rates, or was it just these are some numbers, let's see how that works?
Well, that predates me, so
Sure.
What they had in RS Classic, I was a mere customer at the time,
Sure.
and even when RS2 came out, I didn't join for about 4 months after that,
Okay.
by which time, of course, the XP rates were set. Now, sometimes something would be added to the game, like Granite and Sandstone came out for Anakra's Lament, and the developer who was writing that quest added these in the quarry so that you could use them to do the quest. And I honestly don't remember whether the developer was setting out to create a new grindable training method, or whether the developer put some numbers that would keep you content while you're doing the quest without realising what would come of it. And she's no longer around to ask these days, and it wasn't Maz. So I don't think we know anymore how they came to choose some of these decisions.
So I think we're in the same boat as some of the players. We can only speculate how some of these XP rates for those established methods came about. Interesting food for thought, though. Okay, the next question. Could the private chest at Chambers of Zarek be made so you can move items around in your inventory while the interface is open? As it stands now, anytime you click an item, it automatically puts it into the chest. It'd be nice if I could move them with the interface up.
Shouldn't be a problem. Just
Okay.
have to open a side panel that looks like your inventory, but is programmed to have the rearranging that they describe, so that it's considered part of the modal action that's going on, rather than being separate.
Okay, excellent.
Like, it's not that quick, but I don't see a problem with it if time permits.
Husty for Dubs asked a question about death mechanics. I think this, I've seen it posted quite a lot in the chat, so I might as well answer it. Will there be a death cost at Theatre of Blood? I want to consider learners. So we actually made those changes to the blog before it went to the opinion poll, which was we left the Theatre of Blood unchanged. So as it is now.
Yeah, all the ones that already have a reclaim fee, like Theatre of Blood, Vorkath, Grotesques, various bits of Fremnik Exiles, etc. All of those are being left alone, with the one exception of Azura, which only starts applying a fee once you've got a kill count of like 50. So your first 50 Azura kills, you're still getting your stuff back for free. If, on the other hand, you've killed it more than 50 times, we don't consider you learning anymore, and yeah, we do apply a fee there. Except for Ultimate Iron players, they're being left alone because, frankly, they're a very small niche that we have no particular desire to impact in this update.
Okay, a few more Qual asks from the chat. Medicinal OSRS asks, could you make it so stashed units deposit the stashed unit items even when equipped?
That would be nice.
Making them take the items off you should be fine. They would not be able to put them back on you again.
Okay.
Without them going through your inventory. And to the player who asked why Zora, because that's the one that's free at the moment, and we'd like it not to be. But only for people who've had a good chance to learn it.
Yep, very reasonable. Sir Sardude asks, these shards will not be dropped by PVM monsters, right? Presumably referencing the blood shard we're polling now currently. Have we stated how it would be obtained?
The shard itself?
Yeah.
I don't know if we've said it, but I can say it now. So the shard can be obtained through two ways. One is from killing Firewatches, and one is from pickpocketing Firelords. So they both have a very rare chance. I think it is currently slightly quicker hour-wise to get it from Firewatches. Sorry, but yeah. They're obviously a Slayer task, so it's going to be very similar to Basilisks in that sense. And we chose, as a side note, we intentionally chose to skip any potentially annoying mechanics now for the Basilisk Knights, or sorry, for the Firewatches, because of the feedback we got last time. So we're aiming to kind of get what we did wrong then right this time with those.
That makes sense. Seems like a good formula to follow. Okay, next question. Is there a reason that Arclight's effect doesn't work on Hellhounds?
I don't know.
I assume it was going for the same kinds of things that Silverlight and Darklight already worked on, which, well, predate the old school era and did not include Hellhounds. They could have been made to do so. I think somebody went through and converted it to work on a very simple param, so it's actually quite easy to change if it's agreed.
So somebody replies in the chat, it's a demon's best friend and not a demon itself. I mean, if we're quite happy to sit with that law reasoning, then we'll leave it as it is.
Sounds great.
Next question. Will there be more leagues? Is there anything planned for leagues? Quite an open question. Best way to answer it is, I think we're happy with how leagues performed, and we're really keen to investigate doing more of them. We don't have a release date in mind yet. I think there's been some ongoing design work about the concept behind leagues, tasks, relics, rewards, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't think we can say too much about it. We've already kind of told players that you will see more leagues, but I think the rest is gonna have to wait.
Yeah, we're not locking down when, only that
No.
thought it was quite a good thing and would like to do more of them.
Yeah.
Similarly, I see players in the chat asking about Deadman mode now and the status of that, since we're talking about leagues. Deadman mode for us, it still is on hiatus. When we talk PvP Vision, Deadman will be included, so you'll hear more about that then. Okay, next question. Could the enchantment point cap in the Mage Training Arena be increased to at least 27,500 so that one could hold enough points for all unique rewards? The other 3 point type caps allow this, but the enchantment point cap does not allow for this.
It tends to be quite awkward expanding the data space that's available for something players already have something stored in, but can be done. And in fact, that interface got easier to work with recently, courtesy of, I think, Mod Tide rewriting it. So, should be all right. Hey, Tide. He's doing a thumbs up. You'll have to imagine it.
Okay, next question. Could you give us any details on the Fasani's Nightmare teaser tweet? So this is what I accidentally leaked earlier. Mod Spear, if you would.
There we go.
How
Now
ominous.
it's unleaked.
This is where it was meant to be shown.
Surprise!
So details on it, I'm inclined to say no details, wait and see. Still in the teasing
Yes.
stage?
What do we think the odds are it's got something to do with the nightmare?
Probably.
50.
Hadn't considered that.
Either it is or it isn't.
Thanks, Ty.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Mod Spear. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the stream now, so I will wrap up the announcements should you have missed the beginning of the stream. So let's talk high scores again. We tried a few different things to fix high scores. We know they're broken, we're working on it. There's actually a fix being tested now, and should that fix be successful when tested, we'll roll it out in the next few weeks. And like Ash said earlier, if it is successful, you'll soon see, because the high scores will start working again. Did you have more to say on that, sorry?
No, well, other than that, sometimes there have been updates that we didn't even know about, so they might find out before we do.
It's usually the way. PvP. So we are making very good progress with the overall PvP vision. Just a reminder, it's not about us making small scale changes randomly. I want to build like a holistic vision, but with all PvP, which will dictate what the PvP content roadmap looks like, so you know what to expect in the future. We're still in the process of kind of aligning what that vision is, addressing the feedback we've got from the players we've shared the work in progress drafts with so far, agreeing on the content we're offering, scoping the scale of it when it comes to developing it, and then building the roadmap. We'll share the roadmap as soon as we're ready. Death mechanics, the opinion poll concluded. You can check the results of the opinion poll in game. I went through them earlier. I won't do the same now. But option 3, which was the 15-minute timer, gravestone, and then the should you miss that 15-minute timer, the items would move to a location like Death's office, where you can still reclaim the items but at greater cost. So that's what we'll be pursuing. Development has started and we're aiming for spring. And finally, the poll is now live for the next big content update, which is Darkmeyer. So head to the poll booth or the account management menu and the community tab within that to vote on that poll now. There are 10 questions, which offers the Sins of the Father quest, Darkmeyer as a regional expansion itself, Hallowed Sepulchre as an agility update, and a few other cool things, cool rewards. What are you laughing at?
Did you see the Darkmeyer?
Yeah, very.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I like it. Fair enough now. I guess I'll go through a few facts. We've got 3 minutes left. I spoke very quickly for the announcements, actually. Any other announcements we'd like to announce?
Yeah, Tinted Hits Plus tomorrow.
Excellent, yeah.
Mod Curse confirmed this on Twitter a while back, so if you were following at Jagex Curse, you'd already know.
Nice little plug.
Well, yeah, that plug.
Yeah,
Nice.
He's not paying me to say that, as far as I know, but you never know your luck.
You might now.
Maybe he will now, yeah.
Follow him.
Okay, should we wrap it up there?
Sounds good.
Who wants to know whether max hits are different? I'm afraid they're
Okay.
not. That would be... Well, frankly, there was already some 100 bits of combat code to rewrite for the Tinted Hits Plus that we actually polled. So to bulk it out with something for max ones as well, and maybe different styles for different types of damage would have been well, bulking out the project to a point that it's getting a bit unworkable. And it took long enough to get through testing too, considering how many bits of combat code got rewritten for it. So no, we've left it so that it will be expandable for more of these things that you want, but I'm afraid we have not tried to bundle them in at the same time as feature creep.
Last question I'll take is Warning Mood asks, could we have a coronavirus quest? And I think we'll probably best avoid that one, so we won't have that. And
we could rename that gnome, the gnome gardener, whose name is Ebola. We could update him.
Regularly update it with whatever topical disease or
whatever's gone
might
viral,
be.
yes.
Okay, now I will leave it there.
Okay.
Thank you very much for